Welcome to the NHL Wraparound podcast featuring Neil Smith, President General Manager of the 1994 Stanley Cup champion New York Rangers, and longtime ESPN NHL veteran Vic Morren. Together, they share no-nonsense opinions on news and issues around the National Hockey League. Whether you're a casual or diehard fan, each episode of NHL Wraparound will leave you more informed. Now, here's your hosts, Neil and Vic.
This is NHL Wraparound presented by UBS Financial Services, Inc. Vic Morren, Neil Smith, and soon we're going to be joined by the longtime TV analyst of the Tampa Bay Lightning, Brian Engblom, to go through what's going on with Tampa. They had that phenomenal run right before the Olympic break, and they have staggered ever since then. But first, we're going to go through the puzzles in the maze that makes up the two playoff races. But before we do that, Neil, I got a little soapbox item when it comes to puzzles, because I think both of us like to do a good jigsaw puzzle. I mean, that's really from our era growing up in the 60s and the 70s. And, you know, I got you a jigsaw puzzle for your birthday.
Yes, you did. Very generous of you.
Well, it's not about being generous. It's about this little bug that I have. So, you know, we like to do these 1,000-piecers. And have you ever come to that point? You're about midway through doing the puzzle. You've made for certain that you have kept all of the pieces in the boxes. Everything is intact. But you just know that there's a piece that's missing.
Oh, yeah, that's happened. Yes, several times.
About 500 pieces in, I just got that sense that I had a missing piece. And of course, I got to 999. And then that was the end of the puzzle. And, you know, you go to bed, you're looking all over behind sofa cushions and under rugs and everything. And you think somehow you're going to get up and this single piece will have unearthed itself and found its way into the puzzle to complete it. It was not to be.
No, but actually, when that's happened to me, I've contacted the puzzle maker and told them that a piece was missing, because they're all done by machine and then packed by machine. And I don't doubt there's many human hands that ever touch those boxes. So they actually sent me out a whole new puzzle with all the pieces in it.
Get a little twofer there.
That's right. Then I send you the one that's missing the pieces and see if you can put it together.
Oh, so you're the culprit. All right. So with that, I hope we didn't lose anybody that's tuning in during our little puzzle diatribe there. But it'll be worthwhile, because here are now 3 things that you need to pay attention to. Number 1, so you want to be in the playoffs. And let's talk about the games that took place on Tuesday evening. The New York Islanders, I think they want to be in the playoffs. They come back from 3-0 in St. Louis, win in overtime 4-3. Matthew Barzal with the overtime winner, assisted by Brayden Schenn, his homecoming to the Gateway City.
They gave him a nice welcome back Cotter video early in the game, get it over with, and went on from there. I thought the Blues played really well, though, for the amount of trades and movements they've made and the people missing from their lineup. It could have very easily been that they won that game, but the Islanders, you got to give them credit, boy. They never quit.
They never quit, and they've had a series of multi-goal comebacks, particularly on the road. And you have to wonder how sustainable that is going to be, because even if they make the playoffs, maybe you can win a round. But the teams that they have come up against in these comebacks have not exactly been cream of the crop teams. They have been more kind of in the middle, and other teams fighting for playoff berths. So maybe you can win a round getting away with that. But once you have to see the Carolinas and the Tampa Bays, your luck is going to run out at some point.
And they still have, out of their remaining 17 games, they have 7 against current playoff teams that are in current position. So 10 against non-playoff teams. Doesn't mean they're not going to be in the playoffs, but that are currently not in a playoff position. So we'll find out during those 7 games. You can't fall behind to those teams.
I think the Pittsburgh Penguins also want to be in the playoffs. They come back from 4-2 late in the third period with Stu Skinner pulled. They get goals from Noel Acciari and Brian Rust to tie the game. They do lose in a shootout, but they pick up an important point there. We're going to talk more about the Penguins in the Islanders in just a moment, but I want to move on. Boston Bruins, 13th straight win at home, a 2-1 victory over the Los Angeles Kings on a goal by Charlie McAvoy. The Columbus Blue Jackets, 5-2 win in Tampa Bay on Tuesday against the struggling Lightning. We'll have more on the Lightning with Brian in just a few moments. But Connor Garland, consecutive 2-goal games for the Blue Jackets after going 24 in a row without scoring, a drought that dated back into mid-December.
No, he seems to have really been enjoying his trade from Vancouver to Columbus. The number 8 in Vancouver now wears 83 in Columbus, and the diminutive forward is really doing some great things for Columbus as they keep clawing away to catch the New York Islanders.
Well, it's not only the Islanders in this point, because are the Detroit Red Wings starting to hear some footsteps behind them? The Red Wings are leading 3-2 down in Sunrise, and they let this game get away in regulation. Carter Verhaeghe scores with 1:30 left to tie the game. And then with 15 seconds left in regulation, a shot that deflected off the stick of the newly acquired Justin Falk. Matthew Tkachuk gets assists on both of those goals. And all of a sudden, the Wings have dropped down into wild card 1.
Anytime you take a loss like that, it's got to take the air out of the balloon for the Detroit Red Wings. And they're also missing their captain right now, which is also a huge minus for them right now. Dylan Larkin's out of the lineup. The Red Wings now go into Tampa to face the Tampa Bay Lightning that we'll be talking about in a little while. And then after that, go into Dallas. So it's not going to get any easier for them, especially if Dylan Larkin doesn't get back in the lineup.
So let's wrap up the East right now. In the Atlantic, it's Buffalo with a 4-point lead over Tampa Bay after the Sabres had a 6-3 win over San Jose on Tuesday. Montreal jumps into third place by virtue of a 3-1 win over the Toronto Maple Leafs. In the Metro, it's Carolina, Pittsburgh, and the Islanders. 1, 2, 3 there. Wild card, Detroit, 79 points, now 1 behind Montreal. Boston, 78. Columbus, 76 points. The Ottawa Senators have 73, and they are followed by the Washington Capitals with 71. But I mentioned a moment ago that I wanted to go back to this Islanders and Pittsburgh thing, and that takes us to item number 2 in our 3 things you need to pay attention to. If the Islanders make the playoffs, and it certainly looks like they are going to, and if the Penguins for some reason don't, look at these 2 numbers. The Islanders are 10-0 in overtime this year. The Penguins 1-10 in shootouts. So even if the Penguins are 500, they are very comfortable in a playoff position and might even be pushing for the division lead. But instead, they are still trying to keep themselves in one of those first 3 spots in the Metro. And what can you say about the Islanders' heroics? You get that confidence when you get into overtime that you know somehow either your goaltending is going to save you or somebody is going to come up with the big goal.
Well, and as you just said, if the Islanders had gone 500, which should be fine in overtime, you go 500, lop 5 points off of the Islanders total, and you've got them down to 74 points, which puts them back quite a bit in the pack. So if they make the playoffs, and as you said, it certainly looks like they will, they better credit that 5-minute OT for a lot of the reason that they get in.
Item number 3, the West. So you want to be in the playoffs? I think the Anaheim Ducks do. A win in Winnipeg on Tuesday. They are first in the Pacific by 3 points over both Edmonton and Vegas, and they have a game in hand on both teams. The Oilers win in Colorado 4-3. Connor McDavid, when you think you've seen every move that he could pull off, a gorgeous give and go with Leon Draisaitl. He actually gave the puck to Draisaitl below the goal line, then spun away, doing a 360 away from Devon Taves, took the pass, scored the game-winning goal midway through the third period on a power play. Also notable in this game, Nathan MacKinnon, his first career game misconduct for a goaltender interference penalty, hitting Connor Engblom. But just an absolutely huge win for the Oilers there, who, as we see, game in and game out, you never know what you're going to get. But, boy, this was a big win in a big spot for them.
It really was. And the next up on the Edmonton Oilers plate is the going into Dallas, Texas to play against the Stars. After that, they got 4 games they should win. And this is where the Oilers sometimes slide, not to make a parody there, but they sometimes slide. After Dallas, they go right into St. Louis. Then they come home and play Nashville, San Jose, and the Panthers. And they got to start rolling off wins. I mean, they got to start to show consistency and not show what they've been showing, which is you don't know what you're going to get from night to night.
Team that's struggling to find consistency is the Vegas Golden Knights. And they have lost their third straight. They're 4-6-0 in their last 10. They lose 2-1 in Dallas, who manages to gain on Colorado in the Central Division. And, when you look at Vegas, they are becoming dangerously close to slipping into a wild card spot, because Utah's got 73, Seattle 67, LA 67. Vegas still has 72. But you're watching them play. They're without their captain, Mark Stone. And we have said this already. Something just does not look right there.
It doesn't. I mean, they just don't look like they've got it all together. They really miss Mark Stone, the captain. As we said, the Red Wings really miss their captain, Dylan Larkin, and that can happen. Vegas now, after that road game in Dallas, goes home for 4 straight games against Pittsburgh, Chicago, Buffalo, and Utah. And I think we're going to find out at home there. They're going to have to do some good home cooking during that time to ensure themselves. The one great benefit they got is that the next Pacific team, or the first Pacific wildcard team, is Seattle. That's a bit back, with of the rest of the pack. So it's going to take quite a run by Seattle, as well as quite a belly flop by the Vegas Golden Knights to get Seattle in above them.
Nice segue. Because another team that you want to be in the playoffs, the Seattle Kraken, didn't prove that on Tuesday, dropping a 4-2 decision to the Nashville Predators. They had a 2-0 lead after the first period and kind of got off of their game. The Predators scored 3 in the second and an empty netter by Steven Stamkos in the third. The game-winning goal late in the second from Ryan Ufko, that of Long Island. He's a Long Island native, and from UMass Amherst, which is where he played his college hockey, where, of course, Ethan Morren, my son, is an alumni now. But a terrific individual effort to score the winner, and Nashville is right there for a playoff berth. So now, as we look at the wild card, it's Utah with 73. Despite getting squashed in Minnesota on Tuesday, still in a comfortable position. They are 6 points clear of a playoff berth. Seattle 67, LA with their point in Boston, also with 67. San Jose, despite their loss in Buffalo, with 66. Nashville with 66. And even though the Winnipeg Jets lost on Tuesday to the Anaheim Ducks, they're still hanging around there with 62. So the cutoff point in the West is 87.2 points. That's not a very good record. And that's why a lot of these clubs that we just mentioned are still in this playoff race.
They're still in the playoff race for the second wild card spot. It looks like the first 7 are gone in my mind. But the 8th spot is still very much available, and that'll come right down to the wire. The young San Jose Sharks are going to be trying their best to nip their way in there. You talk about Seattle, though, losing to Nashville. Their next game is at home against Colorado. And so that's not going to be easy when the Colorado Avalanche come off one of their very few home losses and go into Seattle. So the Kraken better watch out, because that Avalanche team, you don't want them angry.
Or as you would say, they better get cracked.
That's right.
That is 3 things you need to pay attention to. Now let's welcome in Brian Engblom.
I want to welcome to NHL Wraparound a good friend and a friend of the show for a long time, Brian Engblom, who, if you've got a long memory, you remember being in those fantastic ads ESPN used to do with you guys. I loved those ads, Brian. I thought the Clement hands of cement. And then sitting in the barber chairs with Melrose and
that's right.
Yeah, those were great. Those were great ads.
I forgot about those.
Yeah. The mullets. You all had the mullets going.
Yeah. The mullets. Yeah, that's right. Well,
thanks for coming in, Brian, and doing this. You were doing the Lightning last night against the Columbus Blue Jacket. I guess I have no choice but to start with the fact that the Lightning 19-1-1 going into the Olympic break. They win their first game coming out of the Olympic break against, I dare say, the lowly Maple Leafs, and now 1-6-0 in their last 7. What's happening in with the Bolts?
Yeah, a lot of things. I mean, technically on the ice, it seems like they've gotten to the point of fix one thing, screw up another. I think it may sound strange. I think they're busy trying to recreate what they were doing when they actually got to 21-1 in that streak. Yeah. And the amazing part of it, like, I was shaking my head going, how are they doing this? They were so efficient at every part of the game. It was ridiculous. And I thought they were never going to lose again. And meanwhile, Victor Hedman has missed over 30 games this year. Ryan McDonough has missed over 30 games this year, and many of them overlapping. So their most experienced and well-known and best defenseman out for that length of time. Braden Point missed 10 or 12 games. Yeah. Kucherov has been healthy most of the time. He only missed 1 or 2. Thank goodness for that. But just those 3 guys alone, plus, some others here and there. How the heck did they do that? How did they go 21-1 with those guys out? I can't explain it. I mean, they just plugged guys in. They were really good at coverage in their own zone, didn't spend much time in their own zone, moved the puck really well coming out of their own zone, which is always a key, and controlled the puck. And then through the neutral zone, in the offensive zone, showed a lot of patience, used the wall a lot, high to low, east to west, at the net, regain, do it again, rinse and repeat. Second periods, they improved a ton from last year. That would be an Achilles heel. They'd get too wild. And a lot of times it was the top guys like Kucherov and Point taking, too many chances and turnovers when, you get worn out in the second periods, and then you're spending time in your own end. Plus, their road game is so much better. They were terrible on the road last year. For their level of team, they were not good. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but that was another thing they had to fix. So they fixed all those things. They got off to a slow start at the beginning of the year. Then they went through this stretch with all the injuries and go 21-1. Then the Olympic break happens, and boom, 3 weeks. And it showed. From everybody, Vasilevsky looked rusty because he's a machine like Kucherov is. He needs to practice all the time. He needs to be in, and I'm sure he did. Look, I hope he took a few days off, and then he's back on the ice and he's in the weight room. I mean, you don't have to worry about those guys. Believe me, those are the guys where you have to go. No, take the day off. Just go home and relax. That's what Vasilevsky and Kucherov are like. And the same thing for Kuch. He's got a net. He's got the synthetic ice in his garage, and he's probably out there at 3 a.m. when he had a bad night, and he doesn't feel great about his game. And so he's always working on the mechanics. Well, they come back, and then all the big boys come back. So I always love this conversation because, so I'm talking about Hedman and McDonough in particular. So they come back and they're healthy. So you got the two main guys on defense back in. Okay, everything's great, right? Everything's fixed. All that mojo of guys that were playing really well, especially guys, like Carlisle and Crozier. Crozier's hurt now, but they've done a hell of a job. Now they're like, okay, who am I again? I'm that guy. I'm that guy from the American League, because the two big boys are back. And then you get different combinations. And then you get, even though they're experienced guys, they had to work, McDonough and Hedman had to work themselves back into it, get some feel for the game. Everything got chopped up. Everybody sort of lost their feel. And momentum is a big thing, especially when you're winning that much. It just seems like, and I think the players felt like quietly, we're never going to lose again. And so it gets like that now when you're losing, and they just feel like they can't dig themselves out. So they're reworking the combinations. I talked to Victor Hedman the other day, and I said, you're playing with new guys all the time. And I said, I know what that's like. Look, we talk about line combinations all the time, right? For scoring and, who's going to do this and who's the shooter and, what's the passing, whatever. In defense, it's even more important. You have to have chemistry with the guy that you play with, because especially you get a 3-on-2 coming against you and down the middle, you usually have one guy who's more aggressive and the other guy's the reader, as a rule. And that's why McDonough and Chernak work so well together. And as soon as McDonough came back, they put them right back together. And it's like Mac never left, because I always say Chernak is seek and destroy. And so you let him do his thing. And McDonough is, the brains of the operation, and he figures out what's going wrong and he cleans it up. If Chernak hasn't turned the puck over and done everything almost by himself physically, along with the back checkers. So that's the kind of chemistry that I'm talking about. And when you're playing with new guys, and especially on defense, some guys just don't fit. They think the same thing at the same time, both charge at the same player, both get out of position the same way, or they get too passive. And next thing you know, you've backed into the dots. And in today's game, with everybody, the way they can score, you're in trouble. Now you got an east-west pass and a one-timer, and your goaltender missed it by 2 feet. So all those things are happening a little bit. So the reorganization of getting healthy actually has hurt them in a strange way. I guess that's what I'm saying. In the long run, it's really good, because Hedman and McDonough and Braden Point, guys that have been hurt probably for the most number of games, they will be healthier and fresher going into the playoffs. And I don't have any, fear that they're not going to be a playoff team. But is it getting tense right now as far as getting on a roll again and winning some games? Sure it is. And you don't want to fall so far from grace that you go from first place in the division and barely make the playoffs. You know what that's like, right, guys? You've seen it, over the years. So you want to prevent that. And there's still lots of time to do that. But it's sort of a long story of what was so good, which was impossible to maintain. I don't care who you are. Colorado Avalanche can't go 21-1 and continue to play like that. Or the best team, our Montreal teams in the 70s. We couldn't do that either. So you name the team. Your Stanley Cup team, Neil, with the Rangers. It's impossible. So you try to recreate history instead of dealing with what's in front of you. That's the simplest way I explain these ruts after a really good string. And to me, that's what's happening.
And I think that's great analysis. And having played defense, Brian, and I know what a great defenseman you were, you're bang on about your defense partner and knowing what he'll do at the moments and who's the brains of the operation and who's the guy that's going to sort of take charge a little bit more physically. And these great defensive pairs that you have, we had Leach and Bukaboom. I mean, it was perfect. They knew each other. You're absolutely right. And the other point that you're making that I've talked about before is when you lose a key player, a lot of times the team plays better. It doesn't make sense to a fan, but they step up, they work harder, they do more. There was a stat on Malkin and how well he's played over the years when Crosby's not in the lineup. His stats are incredible when Crosby's not there.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. There's some kind of juice. And then the other thing that you bring up that's a great point is that when a guy is given the opportunity to fill in for an injured upper player, as soon as that player comes back, well, now I'm back to just being that third or fourth liner, or maybe not even in the lineup. Maybe I got to go back down to the American League. And, you know, it hurts. It hurts. I thought I'd earned my spot. And now back came the big boys, and I got to go back down. And that not only makes that player unhappy, but it makes his buddies unhappy, and it makes his wife unhappy. And there's a string, and you got to get through all that. And so I think your points are fabulous. One last player I want to bring up to you, because you didn't talk about him. He's only had one goal, and he hasn't been injured this season that I can remember, but he's only had one goal since the Olympics, and that's a guy I really love, is Guentzel. But it seems like he's struggled a little bit, at least in scoring.
Maybe in putting the puck in the net. He's got some points. I don't have it in front of me right off the top of my head. But he's a guy I never worry about. I mean, he'd have to go a long time with an offer, in the column all the way along before I'd start worrying about him. Jake Guentzel's one of the smartest players in the league. Look, he came right out of college, right? He ended up playing on Sidney Crosby's line within about 3 or 4 games, I think, when they saw what he could do. That pretty much explained it, right? And he's never looked back from that. He kills penalties in the second group. He's on the power play, of course. Doesn't matter who he matches up against or who he plays with. And he just fits in. He reads plays so well. He knows where to go, and he knows when things are messed up, and he knows how to clean up some stuff before it gets real bad, where players are. And like when you play with Kucherov, Kuch is just a brilliant mind, but he forces things too, like any great player. He is convinced that he can make a pass through 2 or 3 opposing players when he sees, one of his guys 25 feet on the other, across the ice. Yeah. And a lot of times he does make those plays, but it's that ego that makes him great, but also is his downfall at certain times. And every once in a while, Coop and the coaching staff got to go, hey, cut that out. Enough. You know how to play by the clock and the score. You know who we're playing against here. And when you get in the playoffs, there's a time and a place. So every once in a while, he, like anybody else, has to be like, hey, no, not that. So Guentzel knows how to play with Kucherov, how to get open when it comes to making plays and scoring goals. And he also knows when Kuch is turning things over and having one of those nights that he better have one foot going backwards, and he's usually the guy that's helping clean things up with the defenseman when it does go sideways.
I was trying to figure out where I wanted to go with this next, with more on Kucherov or to talk about Jon Cooper, because you had mentioned this litany of injuries that the team has dealt with. Same with your neighbors in the state, the Panthers, but I'm certainly sure that there are no tears being shed for the Panthers this year. But
not from us, that's for sure.
What's that?
Not from us, that's for sure.
No, not at all. But
it's a bloodbath every time we play those guys. It's like 1979 again every time we play the Panthers. It's crazy.
Yeah. But in terms of Coop, and last night against Columbus, Chernik was out. He got in that fight with Kesselring in that wild game on Sunday, and Radish was out. His father passed away.
Yeah.
And all of these combinations that you had mentioned earlier, and you have seen Cooper your entire career since you've been broadcasting the Lightning. Is this the best coaching job that he has done with this club, understanding that there are 2 Stanley Cup rings on his fingers too?
Yeah. It's amazing that he hasn't won Coach of the Year yet. I think a lot of that comes from everybody likes the rags to riches story, right? So when you come from, down in the standings and, you really pump the team up, that seems to get more Coach of the Year. And all due respect to those guys, good on all of them who have won it. But when you have a good team or a really good team and you do win, it's harder to do than people give it credit for. I see Neil nodding his head there. You guys both know that. It's that fine line of jumping to that next level, which means you're a champ. That's some great coaching, because you have to handle all the personalities, never mind just the line changes, and know the opposition. Coop has the mind of an attorney, right? So, I mean, he's a really quick study, and his intelligence level, I think, has a lot to do with it. To me, doesn't matter what sport, the greatest athletes, one of the best assets they have is memory. They use it. Gretzky is the best example I've ever seen in my life. That guy can remember stuff from, when he was a kid. He remembers Game 4, I think, in 1984, and this happened and that happened in the finals, or maybe even the conference hall. I mean, that's what, a big part of greatness, because they use that knowledge and push it forward into the situations they have now. So Coop has a great ability to take it all in. Like, he got schooled when he first came in the league, just like young players do. He got out-coached sometimes. He'd be the first to say it, I'm sure. Line changes and matchups and whatever, even lineups, or what to say. But the thing about Coop that he's always had is swagger. And in today's game, I think it's really important. It's funny because back in my day, I think that might have been misinterpreted sometimes by players. It was a different attitude back then. But he has swagger in that when he walks into the room, I've seen it, on the tape. They put cameras in the room every once in a while. Well, I'm convinced, even though I'm not there all the time, that's the way Coop is. Like, when he walks in that room, he just doesn't walk in slow looking at the floor. He breezes into the room. That's important. Bob Johnson used to do that in college. And when I played for Bob, I kind of sat back. I was like, he just went, whoo. He came into the room like that. All right, here we go. And so Coop has his own way of doing that. Here we go. He walks in with a purpose and he starts talking, right? And the fingers go and he's pointing here and there. This is what we're going to do, blah, blah, blah. And everything is boom, 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 like that. So it sets the tone right there. The players are ready to go, and he has answers. And the players these days demand answers, and he's got good answers. He uses his staff, but they, when they're struggling, when they want, like, what are we going to do here? How are we going to change the entries into the zone? Like, everybody's got a job there. Jeff Halpern has a lot to do with that, just for example. So, all the coaches get together. But Coop has the answers. And he's not shy to step on guys. But for the most part, I think it's more encouraging, and he'll settle back. You see him barking on the bench every once in a while, but not very often. And he's got a group of guys. He understands sociology. It jumped out to me in plain words when I read an article about the first day of the Four Nations, when they got all the players together right before the Four Nations tournament started. They had a get-together, probably a couple of beers, right? And then a dinner, all of them in a private room. He sat at the back of the room and just watched. He watched who sat with whom, who was talking to whom. This is an all-star team of players. And of course, guys know each other from junior or college or whatever, or played with each other on that, the last team, He sat and watched. That's great sociology. He started putting line combinations together based on some of the stuff that he saw. Of course, he knows them from, playing against them, right? Coaching against them. He knows all these guys, but he watched and started forming the lines because of the sociology knowledge that he has. I've never had a chance to ask him if he took a lot of sociology classes. I'm sure it's mostly just natural, having been through sports. But I think that's one of his greatest gifts, his perception of players, the chemistry between them, and, of course, on any given day, what is really important. I remember Daryl Sutter saying to me a long time ago, he said, when he was at the height and winning cups, right, he'd say, I'd watch our guys, whether it was our best player or our fourth line guys, but mostly the top guys. He said, I'd watch them for 2 shifts and know if they were going tonight or whether they didn't have it. And I think Coop is really good, has a really good assessment of that too. So all those things make him the best coach in the game, I think.
You had talked about him having to deal with Kucherov, and his moodiness. He's somewhat of a mercurial personality. And you have seen Kucherov since his third year in the NHL when you joined the Lightning broadcast team.
Yeah.
When you first saw him, did you foresee a player that would amass 600-point seasons, including the last 4 in a row? Because the guy's an absolute maestro.
Yeah, I think he's one of those obvious players that you just watch him for a couple of minutes in practice and you go, who's that guy? You know, he's just different. Dominic James is a rookie for the Lightning. He's hurt right now. But I went and talked to him about 2 months into the season. I went, okay, kid, what have you learned so far? You know, playing with Braden Point and Kucherov, practicing with them every day, traveling and everything. And he just lit up. He said, Kucherov, he said, I can't wait for this summer because what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend an hour every day taking pucks off the wall when it rims around, because that's what he does. He said he doesn't stand in the slot and shoot pucks into an empty net. He's on the wall. He's the best in the game. And I think maybe one of the best I've ever seen for sure at taking pucks off the wall and making the pass coming out of the zone, the most overlooked part of his brilliant game. And he'll get it. He'll have already taken that picture. And I know some of the descriptions about Gretzky was always like his brain seemed to take pictures, right? Click, 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 click. And so when Kucherov sees the puck coming around the wall in his zone, he'll take it on his backhand. He's already looked to see where Braden Point is at the starting point. By the time he turns and spins, I think he gets about a half-second peek at where they are now. But his brain's already calculated where he's going to be. So he'll get it, turn around and spin, and he'll be within 2 or 3 feet. And that's as close as you need to be. Half the time it's right on the blade. Like, you can't explain things like that. He has a brilliance about him that has been worked on for sure, but also he has gifts. But his mind control and the repetition is he goes out and does it every day. He gets in the warm-up. Watch him in the warm-up. Every warm-up, he'll go in the face-off circle like he's in the offensive zone. He's a lefty, but he's on the power play, always in that right circle, right? And so he gets in there and he visualizes, kind of dances back and forth from half time. He doesn't even have the puck in front of him. Most of the time, he's just kind of stick handling slow, but his eyes are darting around. He's looking at the net. He's looking back there. So he's visualizing all those things and getting his mind in rhythm for how to do that. When he gets out there, he demands the puck. Like, give it to me. I want it. And why wouldn't you give it to him? Right. And so everything flows through him when he gets out there. And then they get back and they get the iPad on the bench, whether it's Braden Point or Guentzel or anybody they're playing with. And you go here. And you can see he's doing the talking most of the time. Go there, whatever. It's fascinating to watch him.
A game that's lightning fast, like Gretz, he can slow it down in his own mind.
He can. Yeah. The thing, and like there's so many things to talk about with him. So just for a moment, let's talk about him, McDavid, and McKinnon, right? 1, 2, 3. It's McDavid, McKinnon, and Kucherov right now in 1, 2, 3 in scoring, right? Yep. Kucherov won it the last 2 years, and he's right behind him again. And I think he's played 6 fewer games than McDavid. Mm-hmm. So interesting to see how that'll work out. Excuse me. McDavid and McKinnon want the puck for sure early. McKinnon wants to come back in his own zone and almost play like a defenseman, right? He wants to work his way almost the entire ice. Yeah. He's Gilbert Perreault to me. Because Bert always wanted the puck early. There was more room back there, but McKinnon's so good and so fast. He wants it too. He wants to carry it. And then I'll figure things out once we get in the zone. McDavid will do that, and he'll do a lot of other stuff. He's the exception to almost every rule, right? But they have the puck on their stick a lot, going in circles sometimes, McDavid. Sure, they give and go, but they have it. Kucherov will one-touch the puck 20 times in a game. So if you measure, which you can now, the amount of time that the puck is actually on a guy's stick, he will be way, way lower than those two guys, like way lower, because it's like and gone because he sees Braden Point going. He's already figured out the play. One touch, one touch, one touch, one touch. So it's different. Plus, when he gets the puck, most of the time, he's so different than McKinnon. McKinnon's, he's just like, he's a thoroughbred, running like, wow, accelerating, scaring the hell out of defense. Kucherov's almost slowing down. And he's like an electric vehicle for me. You never hear him skating. It's different. And he's slowing down. And then you have McDavid, who is not even human. He goes two directions at the same time. Like, I'm so glad I don't have to play against that guy. I'd quit. I mean, because he's going sideways, he's going forwards, he's going backwards, he's spinning around. I've never seen and control the puck at hyper speed. It like to do both those things, like it's not human. But Kuch is totally different than those guys. And that's what's so fascinating about the game to me, and always has been. Gretz played different than Mario. You go back to Frank Mihaljevic and those guys, they had their way of playing. Gordie Howe, of course. That's what makes the game great. But Kucherov is one of the most fascinating studies. And then on top of it, because he's tightly wound. He's as tightly wound as anybody I've ever seen. Yep. So when they come up the ice and it goes through him, not only does it have to go in the net, it has to look right. It has to look right in his head, I swear. And when things are going bad, like the game last night, it's not always going to be pretty. He can't stand that it doesn't work. And that's what makes him great. But also it's like, hey, sometimes you're the best player on the team. You got to settle down, because if you look upset all the time, it travels, right? Yeah. And then other players are going to be like, oh, damn, the big guy, whatever. So every once in a while, I think Coop goes, easy here. Yeah. And, he just, that's his thing. That's how he's wired. But it's all fascinating to watch.
Brian, I want to, I listen and watch you a lot on TV when the Lightning are playing. And I know you come up with some great nuggets. And I've got one to throw at you to back up your point about Jon Cooper and how people sort of overlook great coaching jobs when there's a great team in front of them on the bench. Yeah. From 1976, now you were part of this, till 1983, there were 8 Stanley Cups awarded to 2 coaches. Only 2 coaches won 8 straight Stanley Cups. Of course, there's Scotty Bowman that you played under, and there's the great Al Arbour that I worked for a while. Of those 8 Stanley Cup years, guess how many times Scotty Bowman or Al Arbour won the Jack Adams Award?
Yeah, I have no idea. Probably maybe once, maybe twice. Tops.
One time, Scotty Bowman won it in 76, 77. Al Arbour never won it during their 4 cups. So one time out of 8 straight Stanley Cups did the cup-winning coach win the Jack Adams. That proves your point dead on.
Yeah. It's been like that for generations, and I understand it. It's human nature. We love the Rocky Balboa, idea, and the rags to riches and all that, and that deserves a lot of credit. There's no doubt. It's a certain type of coaching that has to happen when you take a lousy team and make it way better, not just a little, but that's what usually turns it around. Which means you probably got some new players that help, but you change the attitude, etc. But when you have a good team, a really good team, maybe the best team, and certainly the Islanders and our Canadiens teams, we're the best teams, and I think we proved that. To do it again and then again and then again and then again 4 times. Yeah. Now that is a whole nother level of coaching that some guys really are just not capable of. It's 2 different schools of thought. And both are necessary and effective, but it's really difficult to bring the best out of players, because human nature is you get a little sloppy, you get a little overconfident, whatever it is, a combination of all that. And then you have the other teams and the other players who are getting better and who want it just as much as you do. And there's a lot of stuff to handle psychologically there.
Well, and you're right. And I think that Lindy Ruff better get a tuxedo ordered for Vegas when the next awards ceremony are. Not saying he'll win it for sure,
Doing
but
a hell of a
he'll
job.
definitely be in the top three. And probably Jared Bednar might not even be at the dance. But we'll wait and see. He's done a great job. My last thing for you is you talk about rags to riches, the underdog and all that. Corey Perry scored twice already in the two games, the first two games, got into a big fight in Buffalo. This is his second go-round with you guys. What impact does Corey Perry have on that fairly young team?
You know, it's funny because he looks exactly the same as he did even like 15 years ago, I swear. Maybe not like a rookie, but was it 21 years? He's one of those ageless guys because he takes care of himself. And, that's the first foremost thing. But I just looked at him and went, you look the same. And he has a real pro's demeanor. I mean, I think he's a Hall of Famer. Yeah. Absolutely. You look at his numbers and he's won the one cup, right? Second year in the league with Anaheim. And then, of course, he's been to the finals 5 of the last 6 times. I mean, that is phenomenal with different teams. That is phenomenal. And that's not by accident. It's because he brings a thing with him. He brings his personality, which is a thing on the ice and in the room. There are some guys that literally walk through the door, and even if you didn't know that person and it was a different walk of life, you'd say, who is that? You get that feel. So when he puts the stuff on, he's definitely like that. I remember Coop saying that when Corey was here the first time, Coop said there would be games where in the middle of the game you're playing lousy, kind of like last night at times against Columbus. And he said I'd start to say something, whether I was going to yell something or whatever, or calm it down. Corey Perry was already saying it. And I never forgot that line. And it's the first thing that I thought of when Corey came back. So, Coop was in line with this, and whoever's idea it was, to bring him back, because they knew what they were getting. And that's what Julian said. They knew exactly what they were getting. And Julian and the management made an exception, because you look at their track record, Julian says it all the time. We do not like to acquire guys on expiring contracts. And they have almost never done that. They made an exception for Corey Perry. So that tells you a lot. They knew exactly what they were getting, so that when he walks in the room, the way he handles himself, Connor Geekie, who's still a kid, he was ecstatic. He looked like an 8-year-old kid going to play his first game with new equipment the other day when I talked to him, because he was going to get some shifts. He said, Corey Perry was my guy in junior. And Corey Perry had, really good junior career, right? And he said, everybody said to me, you're our Corey Perry. So it really hit home for him. So the chance to have it rub off on him, to be, I'm sure he's watched them, every time he's played against them, but every day in the room, you know what that's like, Neil. That's why you make trades for guys like that. Not just for what they're going to do shift to shift, but what they influence and who they influence along the way, especially young kids. But a lot of times you also have guys who are 8 and 10-year pros who pick up some really good things from guys like Corey Perry just because they're there. That's in the room. It's literally how they walk in. It's how they prepare. What are they doing in the gym? Guys are always watching each other. And so all those things are important. Plus, he's a big moment guy. I mean, he scored 2 big goals already in his first 2 games back. He had 10 goals in the playoffs last year, turning 40 years old, playing for Edmonton. Just go to the front of the net. He's never changed his style, and he is a pain in the ass. You know that. Goalies hate him. Defensemen hate him. And if you want to cross-check him, he'll cross-check you right across the side of the neck, too. And he knows exactly when to take a 2-minute penalty for slashing. And he also knows when to drop the gloves and punch somebody in the head. And he stirs up more crap than most guys put together. And that's valuable because he knows who and he knows when. And again, that's experience. But so much of it is just his personality. He looks at you sideways, you're playing against him, and you can just tell, oh boy, yeah, it's on. It's going to happen. Brings all that stuff. it was a great acquisition.
And we all know, of course, that the Lightning are going to the finals because Perry has been there 5 out of the last 6 years.
I hope so.
Yeah. But I think perhaps maybe an unexpected obstacle, and you played part of your career in Buffalo, and the Sabres right now are on top of the Atlantic, where the Lightning have been literally all season long. It's a 4-point difference currently. Lightning do have 2 games in hand, but the Sabres do have that first tiebreaker with regulation wins. The Sabres beat the Lightning 6-2 down in Tampa. I believe it was the second game after the break. And then that wild game on Sunday. And you see this Buffalo team that since December 9th has played the best hockey in the NHL, and they're a wagon right now. And I've got to think that there's got to be some concern there that you've got a team with a ton of confidence, albeit no playoff experience. They've missed 14 years in a row. But when you're looking from the Tampa Bay perspective, what are they seeing in Buffalo right now that perhaps raises the biggest concern as we get towards April?
I think they saw a team that they're going to have to deal with because they are really skilled, and they certainly didn't back down the other day too. I don't know that it was, sometimes in the press and whatever, we're guilty of playing things up because it's good, it's fun. We're not in the room. We don't know exactly what the intent was. But a lot of times when you have games that are just, that out of control, it's not that the players, go in and say, well, let's go out there and get 100 minutes and penalties. We're going to have 15 fights. Is there a feel like, we're going to play rough and we're going to see what happens? Yeah. And then it just goes to a whole nother level. So that's what happened in that game, and it made it fun. I mean, that was a throwback game, and everybody's been talking about it since. Yeah. It's 15 goals and 100-plus minutes and penalties. Doesn't happen a whole lot in today's game. So they knew that Buffalo could score some goals for sure, and they'd been beaten 6-2 in the game before that here. And so then that game, I think there must have been a push to see, okay, let's play physically. And the Lightning over the course of the last couple of years, but again this year, is finding that level of physicality, of starting it or responding, and doing both because of Florida. I mean, they hate Florida. And for, the last couple of years, Florida's won the Cup. Florida beat them in the playoffs. Was that 2 years ago? And it was ugly. They got beaten, and they knew it. Florida ran over them. They beat them on the scoreboard, and they won the series. That was not a good feeling. So what does Florida do? And they play more nasty against the Lightning, I think, than any other team. But they're nasty and they're good. I know what's happening this year. I'm talking about the Cup teams. So they just run out of gas a little bit, I think, this year. But that formula, or what was happening to them, I think made them have to respond like, we have to play tougher. We have to bring, some guys in here who are going to protect and control things. Like Pat Maroon was that guy in the Cup years. He was fantastic, and he got it right, I think, 100% of the time, because he knew when to skate in front of the other bench and call them names and whatever and just stir it up. And he and Corey Perry together, they're big buddies, right? And they would stir it up. Like, and when the game was getting to, this is just kind of like this. All right, here we go, boys. One of those two guys or both. Or, when somebody ran Kucherov or point, it was Maroon to go, hey, no, none of that. Not that guy. Me. You need those guys, right, Neil? You have to have those guys. The game has changed, but in some ways it hasn't. You still have to have those guys. So they've auditioned a few, and I mean, Sabrin's in a lineup still because of that, because he'll do it and he'll drop, and he's got that look from 1972. Like, the eyes spin around in the head, and you don't know what's going to happen. But you need that. And he's willing to do it. So the toughness and all of that and being in your face, they went after Buffalo, that's for sure. And they went after some of their skilled guys because, you know what? They've earned the right to do that. Yeah. Braden Point's had that the last several years. Kucherov gets it all the time. Yeah. So maybe it was, a test, and they went after Darlene and some of their guys. And did it work or not? You can be the judge for yourself. They lost the game, but they also came back from 3 goals down twice in the game. So it was leaky, it was crazy, it was wild, it was everything coaches hate. But actually, I think Coop really liked it in the long run because it showed a lot. And I'm sure Lindy Ruff, I was impressed, I'll say. I was impressed by Buffalo because I'd seen how well they score. I see their record. I'd seen how they played against the Lightning the game before when they beat them. What was it, 6-2, I think. I think there was a couple of empty netters in that one, but still, they played really well. And then this stuff, how did they respond? And they didn't seem to have any problems backing down there. So maybe that was pushing a couple of buttons to see what's going to happen in case they play against each other in a really tough Atlantic division, which is going to be difficult to get out of.
Brian, this has been fantastic, and we're going to have to pay him double, Vic, because he stayed overtime. So instead of 1 coffee mug, you get 2 for your appearance on NHL Wraparound.
Okay.
But this is great.
Right,
I know that we both love watching your broadcasts and see that it's not just that the Lightning are a great team, but the way you can explain the game is second to none. And it's always been that way. And that's why we love having you on here. So, Brian, thanks so much and extended good luck. And hopefully we get to hear you late in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, we only get to do the first round, right, locally. But at any rate, I hope, we always have shows on the internet and whatever all the way to the finals. But yeah, it's always been great, Neil. I always loved doing games with you. It's great. We're good friends, and I always enjoy it. I appreciate you contacting me. And Vic, it's been a while going back to the Espen days. Geez, there was a lot of stuff going on back in the day. I go back to those days a lot, often in my head, and how different things are now, television wise, and where we were. 1993 is when I first started, the first year of ESPN2. Right, yep. That's how I got my chance in television. A phone call out of the blue from Tom McNeely. And so here we are all these years later, and be able to work with guys like you is terrific. And we'll have to get together and have beers or a glass of wine here soon again.
Hey, one promise, Brian, for us. If the Tampa Bay Lightning are in the final, you got to come back on the show.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. That's great.
That I know. And 2 years from today, too, on top of that, right? So I got 2 dates with you.
Yeah, that's great.
Sounds perfect, Brian. Thanks again.
All right. Thanks, guys. Be well.
Neil, Brian and I, as he had mentioned before, met at ESPN in 1993. We worked the entirety of that contract through to 2004. You could tell very early on how polished he was going to be at this particular craft. And I think that we heard in this discussion with him, as we did 2 years ago, that the way he breaks things down, the things that he sees as a former player, is insight that I think thrills us no end to be able to deliver on this show.
Well, I think what's great about Brian, and particularly on this show, but even great on when he has to do sound bites as a color commentator, is his extent of what he says. He makes sure he colors a painting for you in a great way and in great detail. You're never going to get him on and off quick. He's going to make sure that he gets everything in there that he needs to get in. His answers are long when he's on our show, which is great because the more the better. But he is very colorful, which is what a color commentator is supposed to be.
But he also gives you that perspective through history and players and comparables that you can go back in time and see how they apply to the present.
Absolutely. No, and like he talked about Jon Cooper and hasn't won the Jack Adams Award, and we were able to say that, 8 Stanley Cups in a row, and the 2 coaches that did it only won it one time. So, he can bring things, hopefully the same way we do for our listeners. He can bring things from the past to sort of narrate about the present.
I also thought that not only with Cooper, but the insight on Kucherov and Perry and what he looks forward to potentially with Buffalo was terrific insight. And I think this was a real bonus for the show today.
No, it was great. Really great. And really thankful that he came on.
And a reminder that you are tuning in to NHL Wraparound, brought to you by UBS Financial Services, Inc. Neil, over the past week, we have seen a number of moves made by the Chicago Blackhawks in terms of moving some of their leadership group out to other venues. Of course, alternate captains Connor Murphy and Jason Dickinson are now members of the Edmonton Oilers, and Captain Nick Foligno was dealt to the Minnesota Wild. So with that, Connor Bedard now wearing the A for the Chicago Blackhawks, and I think we both believe that this is just the first step of him being named the eventual captain. But when you do a little bit of a scrub down of the captains in the NHL, there are currently 5 teams, including the Blackhawks, that do not have a captain, and 6 that either their best player or their most notable player are the team captain. And those players, at least according to my list, Dylan Larkin in Detroit, Connor McDavid in Edmonton, Brady Tkachuk in Ottawa, Sidney Crosby in Pittsburgh, Auston Matthews in Toronto, and Alexander Ovechkin in Washington. You have watched hockey over 60 years, and you see what leadership is. You see what it's about. You see the type of players that really are captains because they lead, but there are some that are captains simply because they're looked at as the best player. Where do you land on this, on what the ideal captain should be?
I think the ideal captain should be somebody who's known to everyone as a leader of the rest of the group. In other words, someone who it just is natural that that's who should be the captain of the team. Usually it sticks out like a sore thumb. And that's more important than how good your playing ability is. They often talk about Adam Fox being the captain of the New York Rangers, but even he himself would say he's not the captain material. That's just not his personality. A captain is known as the personality sticks out in those individuals, and they're able to lead in lots of different ways.
From where you sit, what responsibilities does the captain have outside of what you see on the ice? I mean, certainly they're the mouthpiece to the referees. They're supposed to lead by example in terms of how they comport themselves. But there are responsibilities for a captain that go away from the rink that many fans don't see.
No, there's a lot of off-ice responsibilities that a good captain takes on, and that's, again, in leadership. So it's making sure that all the guys are in the locker room are getting along together, perhaps having to talk to the coach about individual players or line combinations or different things like that other players wouldn't have the nerve to go in and talk to the coach about. It might also be welcoming new players to the organization when they're staying in hotels and, they've left their family behind in their last city and they're staying in the hotel by themselves. It might be the captain making sure that the 18-year-old player who's trying to play in the NHL out of junior hockey or college hockey is in the right environment, living with one of the other players or making sure his living environment is right. But the captain undertakes a lot of different things as a leader, and it goes right into Leadership 101. It's that you're always on top of things and you're doing it in the way that helps the group as a whole. It's not about you, the player who's the captain. It's about the team all the time.
So the two players most likely to get that captaincy, if not next season, then probably in a season or two beyond that, would be Bedard and probably Macklin Celebrini in San Jose. But I believe both of them have had very different tutelage as they try to grow into these roles that they are potentially going to have. Of course, there was this leadership group in Chicago that Bedard has learned from, but I believe that Celebrini's probably came more out of his Olympic experience because he was supposed to be the guy in San Jose with the Sharks, but he was playing with McDavid and with Sidney Crosby and with Nathan McKinnon, not to mention Mark Stone also. And I'm probably leaving out other captains here, but certainly the way you learn to be a captain can certainly be garnered in different ways. And I think we're seeing the different environments both of these players have been in.
Well, I think they're also one that you're missing, which is Celebrini played college hockey, and he was at Boston College and was mature enough to excel amongst older players. When you play in Regina in the Western Hockey League like Bedard did, you're playing with guys that are the oldest are 20 years old or normally 17, 18, 19-year-olds, and you're competing against them. You're competing in an environment that's the bus, that's high school, so on. When you're in college hockey, you're at a different level of society than when you're in junior hockey. So I think that shows Celebrini's maturity too, that he could excel at the college level, and probably has served him well when going to the Olympic team and having to be in the company of a lot of older players. And it seems from the outside like he fit right in. So I think Celebrini is going to be a natural to be someday the captain of the Sharks.
Either way, both the Sharks and the Blackhawks will probably make some sort of big statement in promoting those two into those roles not too far downwind. Speaking of statements, and we're going to really take an off-ramp here, did you hear what Matthew Knies said prior to the Leafs loss, their 8th in a row, to the Montreal Canadiens on Tuesday?
No, I didn't get it.
Basically, he said that, he's hoping that this is just an off year for the Leafs, but he believes that we'll be back and stronger than ever. And I was baffled by that, because what does that exactly look like, that you're going to be back and better than ever if you're with the Maple Leafs? You've lost 8 in a row coming out of the Olympic break. Your captain has no goals in 12 games. You have 2 playoff wins since 2004. And you haven't won a Stanley Cup since 1967. So I'm kind of wondering what that better than ever bar is here.
I just think that was probably a statement of positivity by Knies. It was probably just trying to say, we'll be back stronger than ever, trying to be positive in a very negative environment. That's Toronto. Probably is not supposed to be Winston Churchill up there talking. He just was trying to say from his own standpoint, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure we'll be back and stronger than ever. But I think all the factors you just mentioned probably don't go through his head when he makes that statement, that the one natural gifted goal scorer they have is their captain, who hasn't scored in 12 games. It's amazing.
And with Nylander still there, John Tavares, it is just baffling what we continue to see. And we don't want to beat up any team time after time, but if you deserve to get beat up, we're going to beat you up the same way we're going to praise you.
Yeah, and it doesn't get any easier for the Toronto Maple Leafs, losing in La Belle Province to the Montreal Canadiens, their rival for decades. They now go home to play against the Anaheim Ducks, who are, again, they're playing well. The Ducks are flying high, you might say. Then they got to go into Buffalo, and no matter how many people cross the border from Ontario to cheer on their loved blue and white, the Buffalo Sabres are on fire at home. And then after that, they go into Minnesota on a back-to-back after Buffalo to play against the Wild, who are not easy to play against. And then they come home to play against the playoff-bound Islanders and the very elite Carolina Hurricanes. So that's their next 5 games. I mean, you could see them lose every one of those.
Unlucky 13, but let's not put the cart before the horse. Only 2 games on the NHL schedule on Wednesday. Washington and Philadelphia play on TNT. But the other one is the Montreal Canadiens and the Ottawa Senators. And as we mentioned earlier in the show, the Canadiens are 3rd in the Atlantic with 80 points. The Senators are 4th in the wild card, 5 points back of wild card 2. They have 73 points, but they are 7-1-2 in their last 10. They've won 3 straight. Is it overstating that this may be perhaps the most significant regular season game that these two teams have played against each other since the Senators came back into the league in the early 90s?
I don't think that would be an embellishment. I think that this is one of the most critical games that these two rivals have played against each other in that period of time. And it's going to be a very important barometer to see where they stand against each other at this point late in the season. Both of them upstarts, really. A couple of years ago, neither one in the playoffs. So, yeah, it'll be a good one with Captain Suzuki against Captain Tkachuk.
A few personnel notes to hit on. Jake Sanderson, speaking of the Ottawa Senators, out week to week with an upper body injury. He took that hit in Seattle over the weekend from Brandon Montour. So that parent shoulder injury going to keep him out for a little while. Let's see if the Senators can sustain without him. Kind of a good news, bad news thing for the Florida Panthers, who are still way back despite their heroics on Tuesday night against the Detroit Red Wings. Captain Alexander Barkov, back skating in a non-contact jersey, joined the team at practice on Monday. But Brad Marchand has had a lingering lower body injury literally for the entire season. The team has said, we try to manage our way through this, but we're going to find out probably by week's end whether they will shut Marchand down for the season, and he may need season-ending surgery. For the Dallas Stars, who got that big win and against the Vegas Golden Knights on Tuesday and are holding second in the Central Division, just ahead of the Minnesota Wild. The update on Rupe Hintz, nothing surgical after suffering that apparent leg injury when he got tangled up with Nathan McKinnon last Friday. He is listed as week to week, and head coach Glenn Gullickson hoping that he can return before the playoffs. And Mikko Rantanen skated Monday for the first time since being injured in Milan during the Olympics. His timetable about 2 to 2.5 weeks. That will close out NHL Wraparound for today. Special thanks to Brian Engblom, longtime TV analyst for the Tampa Bay Lightning, for joining us. Also, thank you to UBS Financial Services, Inc. NHL Wraparound and UBS Financial Services, Inc. are not affiliated. UBS Financial Services, Inc. is a sponsor of NHL Wraparound. No other affiliation, relationship, or endorsement is made, suggested, intended, or should be implied or inferred between UBS and NHL Wraparound or any of the individuals or businesses and or their respective products and services appearing in this program.
And before I go on to thank all our listeners, I want to say happy birthday, 107th birthday to my mother. Today would be the day. Miss her every single day. And if it weren't for her, Vic, I wouldn't be doing this podcast because I wouldn't have been in hockey. She got me into hockey, and that led us to this many years later. Thank you to everybody listening. Can I just
jump in for a second?
Yeah.
She would be on this podcast.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
For sure. For sure. Thank you to all the listeners out there. We really appreciate your attention and listening to us. We'd like to know about you, so please email us directly at neil@nhlwraparound.com or, of course, vic@nhlwraparound.com. All of our podcasts are on all the platforms, including Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and, of course, YouTube. leave us a review if you can. We don't care if it's positive, negative, or in between. We just want reviews. We want to see how you like the show. Please get your friends to subscribe and subscribe yourself if you haven't. And you can find us on X or Instagram or TikTok, or also at ray8.tv. That's at RAYD8, the number, .tv.
Our website is NHLWraparound.com, and in our blog section, New York Centric's latest from Patrick Hoffman, Mika Zibanejad's bounce-back season for the New York Rangers. He just had consecutive wins over the Philadelphia Flyers and Calgary Flames. And also Smith's picks, which are also available on audio. You'd been running quite the hot streak, but a little bit of air came out of your balloon on Tuesday.
Yeah, well, with 13 games, still got 5 wins out of 13. It was an odd night, though. Yeah, you'd have to agree. There was a lot of unpredictable games there. Tampa Bay losing again at home.
Yep.
That was not predictable. And then, so we'll see. We can move on from night to night.
Well, you also had 3 blown leads last night. I mean, you had St. Louis, you had Detroit, you had Seattle. And all of those should have ended up in the win column and didn't.
No, but we talk about this on a daily basis. There are a lot of teams blowing leads at this time of year. Why? I don't know. But there are a lot of teams that either come from behind or blow a lead. Either way, it ends up with the other team winning.
Nothing ever boring in the NHL. Thanks for tuning in, and we will speak to you on Friday with Short Shifts.
Thanks for joining us on the NHL Wraparound Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date on all the NHL action.